Loud, lovely. Good morning, everybody. Absolutely a pleasure to welcome you all to this morning's webinar, our Work Avenue webinar. I'm absolutely delighted going to introduce Stephen Mills, who's going to wave now, who is one of our speakers, and also Alexis Levine, who's our other speaker. And then the other person I want to introduce is Kim Davidson, who's my lovely Work Avenue colleague. So for those of you who don't know, and I think most of you do know, Work Avenue are here to help here to help earn a living. So whether that be to help you find a job, we have a whole employment team. So if anybody wanted their advice, please contact us. Or if you're starting, growing, developing a business, then Kim and I are here to help give one-to-one business advice. So please do be in touch with us if you would like that kind of support. We've also got lots of workshops running. We're putting in some new workshops. We're just starting to put in a workshop on LinkedIn for business. We're going to be running in April. We're going to be running a business and financial planning one in May. So there's really lots and lots going on. Anyway, lovely to see you all today. I think without further ado, the way it's going to work this morning is we'll probably have a good up till about 11 o'clock, maybe just before. We're going to have Stephen and Alexis discussing how using search and social can help you to grow your business. So they're going to talk for 10 to 15 minutes each. If you've got any questions, please do put them in the chat, and then Kim and I will facilitate questions after they've chatted. And then from about 11 o'clock, I'm going to put everybody into breakout rooms. So before we do the breakout networking rooms, I'll discuss how that's going to work further down the line. So yeah, I'm going to start to hand over now to Stephen. So, and I'm going to actually put everybody, I'm going to mute everybody. There we are. And now, Stephen, if you unmute, and I'm delighted to introduce Stephen, who is going to start. Over to you.
Okay, can everybody hear me and see my screen? Yeah, very good. Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Joe, for inviting me to give this talk today. So as you know, I'm going to talk about paid search. So here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to firstly talk about what paid search is and what Google Ads is, then why it's worth doing, what the benefits of it are, and then finally a few things to look out for if you want to make it work. So just before we get stuck in, a little bit about me. My career has been in the advertising world. I've worked in international advertising agencies on some big brand accounts. I've been involved with paid search and Google Ads for the best part of 12 years or so now. I now run a PPC agency. PPC is pay per click. We're called PPC Republic, and we generate business leads for our clients through paid search campaigns. Okay, so let's talk about what paid search actually is. It's possible many of you might know this already, and maybe some of you have even run your own campaigns. What we're talking about is advertising, paying to advertise on a search engine. And when I say a search engine, for all intents and purposes, we're talking about Google, because it's by far and away the dominant player in the market. Google's paid search program is called Google Ads. It used to be called Google AdWords. So to explain Google Ads, I thought we'd start off by taking a little trip back in time. And this here is what Google first looked like when it launched in 1998. You can see that, see a few smiles there. It looks quite different to it does today. And then if you did a search, you then get through to this search results page. As you can see, it's very plain and simple, just the search results, nothing else there. And then just as a brief aside, before we carry on talking about Google, I thought I'd show the home pages of a couple of other tech giants that I saw when they first started, because it's fascinating to see how they've evolved. Let's have a look here 1 second. So this was Amazon's first homepage in 1995. You can see that, very no frills and basic. Welcome to Amazon.com books. And this one was Facebook's first homepage in 2004. And you can see back then it was called The Facebook. And at the bottom there, you'll see a Mark Zuckerberg production, which is quite amusing. I think he did that out of his back bedroom. Okay, moving back to Google. So they were very successful when they launched because they had the best search technology, but they weren't actually making any money. There was an advertising model on a rival search engine called goto.com, and Google basically copied it. The concept was to have advertisers pay for ads, which sat alongside search results, and advertisers would pay when people clicked on the ads, hence the term pay per click. So Google AdWords, as it was, launched in the year 2000, and this is what it looked like back then. You can see the term sponsored links at the top and at the side of the results. These sponsored links are basically companies paying Google to appear in these prominent positions on the search results page. So rather than relying on Google's algorithm to determine which results show up naturally, companies could now essentially short circuit that and get straight to the top of Google search by paying. And it's interesting to see as well that the ads back then were very clearly defined using pink and green colors, obviously all about drawing attention and generating clicks and earning Google money. As time went on, AdWords evolved and Google continually changed the page layout. Here you'll see a search results page from 2007 with a yellow tint background to differentiate the ads from the natural results. So fast forward to today, here's a look at the search results page today. This is a search for an accountant in Watford. But that's not too stereotypical as a nice Jewish search example. Anyhow, the principle is still very much the same as it always has been. The ads are prominent at the top of the page. They stopped showing ads on the right-hand side of the page about 5 years ago. But you can see now how discreet the ads are. There's no colors or tinted backgrounds anymore, just a small word ad alongside each one. And it's actually very easy not to even know that they are ads. I couldn't fit the whole search results page on one screen, but scrolling down the same page after the bunch of ads, you then get the local listing. So this is also known as the local 3-pack, and you can click through to Google Maps and the info from a company's Google My Business page there. And then underneath those, you then get the natural listings, the organic results. And these are the pages that Google's algorithm determined that are most relevant to the search query. And businesses achieve these high natural rankings by doing search engine optimization, SEO. But we're talking about paid search, which are those ads at the top of the page. So going back to Google Ads, how do the ads appear? So the first thing to understand is that there's an auction. Advertisers are bidding for the clicks. So one of the most common questions people ask is, how much does Google Ads cost? And the simple answer is, well, it depends. It's not like traditional media. For example, if you're to buy an ad in the newspaper, it has a fixed cost. You know, a half-page ad might cost £500, a full-page ad might cost £800, whatever. The cost of Google Ads all depends on the popularity of the keywords and how competitive the sector is. And how much you're prepared to bid depends very much on what a sale is worth to you. So for example, some recent research shows that the most expensive keywords are for the term mesothelioma, which is, they're over $900 per click. That's not per sale or per lead, that's per click. But these are asbestos claims, which can be worth over $1 million a time to legal firms, which is why they're prepared to pay such enormous amounts for these keywords. But it's not just about the auction. You don't just win first place on the page by being the highest bidder. The position you get, or the ad rank as it's called, is also influenced by other factors that together make up something Google calls quality score. Some of those factors are on screen there. I haven't got time to go into too much detail right now, but in a nutshell, you need to ensure that you're managing your Google Ads account well, so you meet Google's requirements, which in turn will get you these higher quality scores. Okay, that hopefully explains what Google Ads is. Now let's take a quick look at why it's worth doing, the benefits. So firstly, Google, we all know this, but it's enormous, huge volumes. Just some numbers here. Whichever way you measure it, the numbers just keep on going up and up and up. There's just colossal number of searches being made. It's by far and away the most used search engine worldwide and in the UK. And of course, mobile search as well is continually on the rise. And in terms of Google Ads itself, well, Google Ads is massive. And so many times over the years, I've had people say to me, oh, I never click on the ad as a justification not to run the Google Ads campaign. But it's worth knowing that until recently, 97% of Google's total revenue came from Google Ads. They've diversified in recent years, so that number's come down a bit now. But essentially what you have to realize is that one of the largest companies in the entire world makes the lion's share of its revenues from this advertising program. So Google Ads is just enormous. And you can see how it's grown and grown and grown and grown year on year. It's relentless. They made nearly $150 billion last year from advertising. Okay, so we know it's a huge program with an enormous audience. But I think the reason why it's so successful is almost entirely because of this intent. So historically, adverts tried to interrupt you while you were doing something else. So you could be in the middle of enjoying your favorite TV program and then the ads come on. So you get to make a cup of tea, or you read in a magazine and you have to flip past the pages with all the adverts in to get to the article you want to read. Or you might be enjoying some music on the radio in the car and then you get really frustrated by an annoying jingle and an advert. So what makes paid search a totally different ballgame is that ads are shown to you precisely when you are searching for that particular product or service. So if you're already actively looking for an accountant, then seeing an advert for an accountancy firm is not an intrusion at all. It's actually incredibly helpful. It's all about the context. And another benefit of Google Ads is how fast you can start to see results. Basically, as soon as you start your campaign, you'll be getting leads or sales almost immediately. And that's one of the main differences to SEO, search engine optimization. It works straight away, whereas SEO can take some time. And also, although the clicks in the natural listings are free, you'll almost certainly still have to pay someone to do SEO for you. So it's not that SEO is free and paid search costs. There are kind of costs both ways, really. But it is worth pointing out that you don't have to choose between PPC or SEO. Ideally, in an ideal world, you should do both because they complement each other very well. Measurement. Okay, many years ago, I used to work on the Colgate-Palmolive advertising account, and we did TV, press, poster advertising. They spent over £30 million a year. And we'd have these review meetings, and the research would show that there'd been a 3% increase in propensity to buy, or a 5% attitudinal shift. There was no hard data. There was no way to draw a definitive line between the advertising and the sales. They could only monitor what people thought and what their future purchasing behavior might be. But at the time, this was enough to justify reinvesting millions in big advertising budgets year after year. So this is quite a famous quote, which I think really exemplifies this issue of measurement. Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted, and the trouble is I don't know which half. So that was Lord Leverhulme, who was one of the first large industrialists at the start of the 20th century. He ran a massive soap business, it was a forerunner of Unilever as it is today. And they were one of the first major consumer advertisers in the country. And he identified this issue back then. The difference now, of course, is we've got 100% clarity. We can track and monitor everything. It's all totally measurable. And you also get a huge amount of control over how your ad campaigns run. So there are a lot of targeting options in Google Ads. You can choose exactly how much you're prepared to spend each day on your advertising. If you can only answer calls weekdays 9 to 5, you probably only want to show your ads at those times, or you might only want your ads to show to those searching in the Watford area, for example, or only to French speakers in London, whatever. You get lots of flexibility. Okay, so just a quick summary of those benefits that we discussed. Reach. Google has a massive audience. Intent. Customers see your ad when they're actively searching for your product or service. Speed. You can start getting leads and sales straight away. It's much faster than SEO. Measurement. You can track everything so you know exactly how well your campaign is performing. And control. You get lots and lots of flexibility with your ads. Okay, so let's take a look now at a few things you need to do properly if you want to run a successful campaign. Not mistakes as such. They're more like helpful suggestions if you're working with Google Ads. Very often I've heard people say, oh, I tried Google Ads and it didn't work. So they write it off, but it wasn't a fault necessarily with Google Ads. They probably didn't know how to manage their campaign properly. And Google does make it very easy for businesses to start a Google Ads campaign. There are all sorts of smart campaigns and automated features to help you get going. But it is quite easy to blow your budget and not get any results unless you're prepared to learn about the platform yourself or hire someone else to do it for you. Okay, apologies for the Simpsons memes here. I'm a big Simpsons fan. I've been getting good value out of my Disney Plus subscription during lockdown, currently up to season 10 out of 32 seasons, I think there are on there. So when setting up a campaign for the first time, people often fail at the first hurdle because they do poor keyword research. So keywords are the backbone of every campaign. If you don't get this right, you're not going to be very successful. It's about understanding what words people are typing into Google when they're looking for your product or service. So which search terms do you want your ads to show up for? How different search queries relate to where the customer is in the buying cycle, how to group related keywords together, a whole host of other keyword related issues. And the landing page, you can have the best Google Ads campaign in the world, but if you send your visitors to a bad landing page, the whole campaign will fail. It's surprising actually how many advertisers still just point people to their website's homepage. There are lots of criteria about what makes up a good landing page. Some of them are listed there. But ultimately, you want a landing page experience that generates the most responses. And Google will also assess the landing page experience. And if they see it's bad, this can impact your quality score, like we mentioned earlier, which can have an adverse effect on your campaign. Ad extensions. So this is often overlooked by advertisers. Google has a lot of extra options you can add to your adverts, extra kind of bells and whistles, as it were. They can add really valuable information and functionality to the ad. So the ones shown here, for example, are call extensions on the left there, which allow you to make a call directly from the ad. Site link extensions, they allow you to include links to different pages of your site. And location extensions at the bottom there, which allows you to show your address in the ad itself. And the key thing here as well is that they take up more real estate on the page. They're bigger, your ad becomes bigger. So you get more attention and hopefully more clicks. So also hugely significant, but often overlooked by many businesses starting out on Google Ads are negative keywords. It's not just about the keywords you want to show for. You also need to know the keywords you don't want to show for. So if you're an accountancy firm, for example, you probably don't want to be paying Google for clicks on terms like free accountant or accountancy jobs or about accountancy. You'll want to add those keywords to a negative keyword list. And if you get this right, it can have a very positive impact on your campaign as a whole, not least of which is saving money and getting better value out of your ad spend. Testing. So you've got to keep testing and improving on what you're doing. It's good practice to have at least 2 ads in every ad group you're running and let them compete against each other. And then you have one with a different offer or a headline, for example, and run the test for a week or so, ditch the losing ad, then create a new version of the winning ad, and then just keep testing, keep doing that over and over again. And that way, over time, you'll be making your campaigns more effective. Conversion tracking. Again, this is a must. You need to set up tracking within Google Ads from the outset so you can monitor how well your ads are performing and ensure you're not wasting money. Because without this info, you'll just be working blind. You simply won't know your ROI, your return on investment. But if you do set this up properly, you'll be able to find out, for example, which keywords are generating you the most leads, and you can then optimize your campaign accordingly. Which of course all leads to this profitability. So unless you're in the not-for-profit world, we're all in business to make money. So you have to know the numbers in your business. How many leads you need on average to make a sale, how much is your average sale worth, what margins you're working on, and then work backwards so you know how much you can afford to spend and bid per click. And according to Google's own figures, by the way, advertisers generally get back between 2 to 8 times their investment. Okay, so just a quick summary of those common mistakes. So keyword research, fundamental, you need to get your keywords right. Landing page, also critical. Your campaign will fail if your landing page isn't up to scratch. Extensions, you're really missing out if you don't use these. Negative keywords, in many ways, just as important as your main keywords. Testing, you've got to keep doing this if you want to improve your campaign. Conversion tracking, without this setup, you'll be working blind. And profitability, you need to know your numbers. So just finally, before I wrap up, we've been discussing paid search on Google Ads, which is a form of pay-per-click advertising. But if you're a local service business, like the types of businesses on screen, you might be interested in Google's brand new advertising platform that's just launched in the UK, specifically for local service businesses, which is a pay-per-lead model. It generates new customers at a very low cost. So these local service ads appear right at the very top of the search results page, even above all the other Google ads. And that's a different conversation really for a different time. But if anyone is interested in, if anyone is in those sectors and is interested, I'm more than happy to explain that further. So my contact info is on screen. I'm sure you can also get it from Joe. And that's it. Many thanks. You're on mute, Joe.
Thank you so much, Stephen. That was great. I'm going to change the thing. Alexis, just before we start with you, there's one or couple of questions and then we will ask, we'll have more questions at the end. But Jackie said that is Google Keyword Planner free? She struggled finding tools to identify keywords. And do you need,
yes, it is.
But do you need a Google Ads account first?
Yeah, you need a Google Ads account, but you can open a Google Ads account for free and just sort of, you need to kind of set it up and they'll make you answer lots of questions. But once you set up the Google Ads account, it's one of the tools within that Google Ads Keyword Planner.
Great, Jackie, I hope that answers your question. Does that answer?
There are lots of other tools out there as well, by the way, just to say. Most of them are paid tools that you have to pay for, but it's a good starting point as the Keyword Planner.
Okay, so I'm going to, unless anybody's got any vital questions, which please do kind of ask now, then we'll, first of all, if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat, because we'd love to take more questions at the end. But I'm going to, without further ado, so Jody said, will someone touch on Google Shopping versus Google pay-per-click? Can you touch on that later, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, just to say, Google Shopping is part of Google Ads. We personally don't really get too involved with e-commerce kind of campaigns. We're more involved with lead generation, and but it is very much part of Google Ads, and it's very much, you know, part of running Google Ads campaigns.
If you've got a specific question, Jody,
yeah, I mean,
ask in the chat.
I'm more than happy to. Anyone wants to ask me any question privately, I'm more than happy to, you know, to do that.
Let's move on. Thank you so much, Stephen. That was a really good whistle-stop tour of Google pay-per-click, and it was very interesting to see what it used to look like back in the day. Okay, so now without further ado, I am going to hand over to Alexis, who will talk about paid advertising on social media.
Thanks very much, Joe. I hope everybody can hear me okay. My name's Alexis. I'm the founder of Keris Digital Media. I've had a background in digital advertising for about 14 or 15 years. I've worked on some of the world's largest brands, including Danone, Volvic, Evian, BMW, Mini, worked with jewelry brands, retail, FMCG, quite a broad range. But I guess paid social advertising is probably my passion, my bread and butter, and also digital display advertising. So that's ads that you see not on search engines or on the social networks, but elsewhere across the web. But today I'm just going to focus on paid social. So what I actually do, I work for a media planning agency, or Keris is a media planning agency. The world of advertising, really, you can split into two. You've got your creative advertising agencies. They're the guys that design the ads, write the ad copy, make it look pretty, in a nutshell. On the other side, and we often work together with creative agencies, we are the ones that plan where the adverts will be seen and the targeting strategy. So there's no point in making a really, really beautiful advertising campaign if the right people don't see it. So that's what I do. I'm actually within the media planning agency. Now, think back to the beginning of social media, that lovely screenshot that Stephen shared before when Facebook first came about. A lot of advertisers and a lot of brands saw social media as the ideal platform to really communicate a message at scale for free. And it worked. It was fantastic. It was really free advertising. But Mark Zuckerberg and all the other founders of these other various social networks kind of cottoned on to the fact, just like Google, that actually this is a business and there's money to be made here. So what happened was all these brands who are putting all their content on their pages, what we call the organic reach, started to dwindle. So this is like over the last 8 years. You can see in 2012, if an advertiser was to put a post out on their page, it would on average hit about 16% of their page's followers. Going down to 2019, well, it's around about 1 to 2%. So the content that you put out there on Facebook and other social networks isn't really being seen. So it's now all about pay to play. So if you want to get your message seen, if you want people to hear about you, you have to put your hands in your pocket now, unfortunately. This is an actual graph from one of my clients from kind of Q4 last year. The dark orange is the reach from our paid advertising campaign. So you can see that, you know, it reaches up to about 6 million people per day. And there's a very, very faint line then at the bottom. It is there, I promise, but that's the organic reach. That's the amount of people that were following our campaign, following our pages that saw our ad. So you can see it's tiny. Without the paid, you're just getting nowhere. But it's not just about the numbers, big numbers that paid social can bring. It's when you get to do some really clever stuff as well. And that was one of the big lures of advertising on the social media networks. But there's 3 questions that you really need to ask yourself before you start an advertising campaign. Firstly is, who am I talking to? Because there's some of the really clever stuff about advertising on these social media platforms. It's not inferred. You can actually choose who you want to talk to. You can choose to target a 25-year-old female living in NW3 with an interest in baking. That's advertising that you can't achieve elsewhere. The second question you need to ask yourself is, what is it I want to tell people? What do I really, really want to say? And the third thing is, what do I then want them to do, having seen our ads? And they're all really important things. And the way that helps me segment my audience in terms of the targeting, in terms of what you want to say to them and what you want them to do after, is all about the purchase journey, the customer purchase journey. At the beginning of the customer purchase journey, you've got your brand awareness stage, and all advertisers do this. Coca-Cola, even the world's biggest brands, all about brand awareness, constantly there reminding you about Coca-Cola or BMW. Then you've kind of, there's a trigger stage around about where this blue triangle is. That's when somebody actually comes into market. So maybe they need a new car now. So they've come into market. And at the consideration stage, you need to be educating people about why should they choose the BMW X3 above the Audi Q5, for example. And this is all about the education stage. When you move further along, people are getting closer and closer to purchase. They've probably visited your website. They may have been to a dealership or may have gone to a shop. They're just about ready to make the purchase, but we need to push them over the line. It could be in terms of a sales offer. It could be a financial incentive. And that's the conversion stage. So at that stage, we want them to go and buy. After that, you get to the loyalty stage, constantly reminding them and what a great brand they are, always getting them to engage. You want people to engage at this stage, because at that stage, you can kind of skip out the brand awareness. They already, when they come back into market again, they already know about you. So your brand awareness stage is kind of done and someone's bought into the brand. I'm not going to go into this in further detail, but I think these slides will be shared. So this kind of really just shows what you want to do at each stage, what each stage of the purchase journey is about, what the mindset of the people you're talking to is at any one time, what the role is of the media at every single stage of the purchase journey. Inspire and entertain, educate, closing that deal, driving engagement, and the kind of message that you want to say. So, at the conversion stage, there's no point in saying, buy now, buy now, buy now, if people don't know about you, because, I wouldn't possibly buy a car that I didn't know anything about. If someone was saying, buy now, buy now, buy now, there's the messaging all along at the different stage. So, hey, we've got a great car. This is why it's a great car. Buy the great car. Come and service our car with us, for example. So who are we targeting? Who are we talking to? This is the really cool stuff that I mentioned before. And this is one of the things that advertisers really loved about advertising on on platforms such as Facebook, because you can be really, really niche. As I said, you could target a 26-year-old female living in NW3 with an interest in baking and football, for example. I'd exercise caution about being very, very, very niche in your targeting, because the more you target, the more expensive it actually becomes. And Facebook would have spent billions of pounds on their algorithms, which actually, so it essentially, it means let the Facebook platform do its job itself in finding the right people that are going to buy your product or going to do whatever it is you want them to do. So I really would, whilst there is point in being targeted to a degree, don't forget, if you said you only want to target a 25-year-old, you could be missing out on a 24-year-old or a 26-year-old who is going to convert. So don't be really, really niche in your targeting. As I said, tell them a story as well. Go on that purchase journey with them. So all around that purchase journey, say, as I mentioned before, educate them, entertain them. Hey, this is us. BMW do great cars. And then at the consideration stages, BMW do a great car for families. And then BMW, great deals on our car. Go on that journey with them. It's a journey, it's an opportunity to tell a story, to tell your story, and to fit it in line with where they are in the buying cycle, which Stephen helpfully mentioned before as well. One of the really cool things about advertising on Facebook and Snapchat and Twitter, there's some really, really cool advertising formats. Networks really focus on play to keep their audiences on the platforms, which is a really nice opportunity to drive brand awareness. These are actually examples from a few months ago where it was a campaign that Fanta ran on Snapchat. The one on the right-hand side is an opportunity to actually play a game. And it's all branded. That kind of stuff is obviously very, very expensive to produce. But just wanted to give you a taste of the kind of things that you can actually do on some of these social media platforms. This is a Canvas ad. It's a full screen ad unit, which is available on Facebook. Really an opportunity to communicate the range of products that you might have and give your audience a reason to buy. It's interactive, it's playful, it's fun. These are relatively low cost to produce, but I find them really, really effective at building that product and brand consideration. These are ads which I have no doubt many of you will have seen before. These are called dynamic product ads. It's a kind of carousel ad unit. I'm sure all of you have been onto a website, looked at a pair of shoes or a coat, and then 30 seconds later, you've gone onto Facebook or Instagram, and you've been targeted immediately with the exact pair of shoes that you've just been looking at. It's a massively, hugely effective way of driving conversions. It's a reminder of the product that you've viewed, and there's a very clear sales message here. And I would really, if you do have an e-commerce site, really consider these types of ads. If you want any help with these, then I'm very happy to jump on a call and just kind of guide you through what you need to do these kind of ads. These are, like I said, these are dynamic product ads, but this is a carousel ad unit. You don't just have to have DPAs or dynamic product ads to run a carousel ad unit. You could choose what images and you want and whatever you want to say in these types of ads too. Stephen as well mentioned about measuring your ad performance. It's really, really important on PPC, and it's really, really important on paid social as well. and the different stages of the purchase journey, you want to be measuring different things. So your front three stages of the purchase journey are the awareness, the trigger stage, and the consideration stage is all about building brand awareness, all about building that brand and product consideration. And there are ways that you can measure that in terms of click-through rates, in terms of traffic, engagement rates. Facebook have something called ad recall lift, which measures the amount of people that would remember seeing your ad if they were to be asked. At the conversion and purchase stages, you've got CPA, that stands for cost per acquisition, so, or cost per action. How much did it actually cost you to get somebody to buy your products? And that's conversion lift as well, which is the amount of people that actually bought your ads, definitely because they've seen, bought your product definitely because they've seen your ad. There will undoubtedly, people will undoubtedly have bought your ads, bought up your product anyway, and they haven't necessarily been prompted by your ads. They just would have bought it anyway. But there is a way of measuring your conversion lift. So what is the incremental sales bought from your advertising campaign? And ROAS stands for return on your advertising spend. So for every penny spent, how many sales did you actually drive? And then there's loyalty as well. At the loyalty stage, it's all about engagement rates. How often are people engaging with your advertising? So in summary, it's all about pay to play on the social media networks. If you don't spend money on the advertising, people aren't really going to see your posts. There's not really point spending lots of money on beautiful, creative, a lovely video if people aren't going to see it. The purchase journey really helps segment your audience and helps you deliver the right message at the right place at the right time. And it's always really, really important to measure your advertising campaign as well, so you know what is performing well. And as Stephen mentioned, really do a lot of testing too. Measure creative A versus creative B, different call to actions, different images, different colors. All these things will deliver the success of any advertising campaign. So always would recommend a rigorous test and learn campaign too. That's all from me. If anyone does have any questions, be delighted to answer, or if you do want to have a private chat, also happy to do that.
So we've got some questions. Thank you so much, Alexis. That was really excellent for both of you to give us a whistle-stop tour through two very big channels that are important in terms of getting your reach out there. Jackie, we've had another question from Jackie saying, do you think Boost on Facebook is worthwhile for small businesses rather than paid advertising?
So the boost is, you are spending money on advertising. It's essentially the same thing. I think when advertisers do tend to boost, it does tend to be smaller advertisers, and I've got mixed feelings about it really, because if you just spend 10 quid on an advertising campaign or an advertising post, I really think it's a drop in the ocean. And I'm not convinced how effective spending £10 or £20 on an advertising campaign would be. The more money you spend, really, the more effective it would be, because the algorithm gets to do its job. There's more data involved. I'd probably tend to shy away from spending the odd 10 quid here and there.
Thank you, Jackie. I hope that answers your question. This is a question from Stephen, which I totally agree with. Stephen, is Facebook listening to us? Because more and more, he says, he's seeing ads in Facebook, not and he hasn't even searched for them online, and then they're just coming up. And that happened to me. I was having a conversation about running a 10K with my husband, and then I started seeing ads for that. I mean, yeah.
They are, I mean, you wouldn't, I think if you were to search for it to see if that's actually happening, then you wouldn't find any answer, but it's happened to all of us. Yeah, we have a conversation. We haven't even done anything online. We just had a conversation, and yeah, you see an ad pretty soon after. They have, Facebook have their SDK, that a little bit of code in thousands and thousands of apps, and they're all listening to you. Really, when you download an app, you are pretty much agreeing for that data to be passed on to Facebook. But yeah, I couldn't say without any doubt, but yeah, I think they are listening to us.
We've had we won't go down the rabbit warren of the kind of all-consuming nature of it, because it's just too scary. But Jodie says she believes you can turn it off in the app. So Jodie, if you know where you can and people don't want to be listened to, then please put that in the chat. And we've had a question, thank you, for Melvin. Can you launch a campaign? And maybe let's ask this to both of you actually, for PPC. So maybe Stephen, you want to ask this first. Can you launch a campaign on a small budget, and what's a good amount to spend? Melvin, I'm not sure what you mean by a small budget, but let's keep in mind that most of us here have got, or most of the people here have got, small businesses. So what would you say, Stephen first and then Alexis, that you should be spending?
Yeah, okay, so I'll answer first. So again, like you just said, it all depends what you mean by small. Everything's relative, and different people have got different historical attitudes to how much they're prepared to spend on advertising. You know, over the years, I've never been, always been surprised by how many people who I know should be able to afford it, given their revenues and the type of business that they kind of run. They've just got an aversion to putting their hand in the pocket for advertising, even if you can kind of prove to them that it works. Generally, I mean, historically, you know, the first thing to know is that Google clicks have increased in cost over the last sort of, you know, it's been running for 20 years now. When I first got into this 12 years or so ago, they were a lot cheaper than they are now, because it's become more competitive, and basically the costs have gone up. The value is in trying to find clicks for keywords that are maybe less competitive, so what they call the longer tail keywords. So rather than just going after, I don't know, if you're selling toys in Golders Green, you sort of go specific on the make and the model of the toy or whatever it may be. But yeah, I mean, look, unquestionably, you've got to put your hand in your pocket and be prepared to invest quite a few £100 really, you know, each month to kind of really make it going. I can't give a specific figure because it all depends on what the sector is and what the keywords are. But you know, certainly if someone was used to, you know, in the past maybe putting, you know, spending £50 a month or something, then you're not going to get very far, because, you know, the cost of clicks could be, you might just get 10 clicks for £3 each for £30, and you might only get one kind of, you know, lead. You know what I mean? So it all depends. It just depends what the budget is, what the sector is. Sorry.
Alexis, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Stephen, really. It does depend on what your sector is, who you're targeting, how big is that pool, really. And small budget is, to one client, is totally different to another. I think it's always worth investigating and doing small tests. And, you know, if an advertising campaign does work on a small test, then you could reinvest what comes back to you in spending more money on your advertising, because ultimately, if you're getting a return on your ad spend of, you know, 200-300%, then it would make sense to reinvest that revenue back into a future advertising campaign and see that return on your ad spend grow and grow and grow.
We've also had a question from Rachel Bradman about what about paid advertising on LinkedIn? I don't know if you do that, Alexis.
Yeah, I do that. Is there a more specific question than that?
Yeah, Rachel, have you got a? I don't know
Yeah,
if you've got unmute yourself.
hi, it's pure B2B.
Yeah.
So we don't find Facebook particularly effective, or Instagram. So yeah, it's B2B, and I don't know if we need more than that, but
yeah, I mean, like LinkedIn is probably the better platform for you if it is B2B.
Yeah.
There's a huge amount you can do on LinkedIn now. I think over the last 2 or 3 years, LinkedIn's ad platforms had improved massively. I think until fairly recently, the only thing you could do on LinkedIn was a little ad in someone's messenger inbox, and you were quite capped to how often someone could be targeted. But now you can target people based on the sector they work in, the amount of experience they have, their job roles, their location, even their company, the amount of people that work in their company. Again, if you want to have a chat, I'm happy to just a free chat about what I know about LinkedIn on our LinkedIn.
It is worth pointing out as well, I think, isn't it, that LinkedIn advertising is generally, Alexis, a lot more expensive now than say Facebook ads, because essentially you're reaching a very specific professional audience, and you have to pay for the privilege of that. So the costs are higher, but the potential rewards are there. So.
Massive, much higher actually. You could get a cost per click on Facebook for 20-30 pence, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it 5, 6, 7, 8 times higher on LinkedIn.
I just wondered if there were different. I use LinkedIn prolifically, so I understand I've used it for about 10 years. I just wondered if there were similar rules. Sounds like there are, but I didn't know if it was a totally different game.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've also had, which is a good point, just from Zach, saying, and please be aware, what about costs the agencies charge? So obviously, if you're not doing it yourself, you're outsourcing it to somebody like either of yourselves, there will be an agency charge, but I'm guessing these will be very different. I mean, Zach, my point is from a business advice perspective, is that if you don't have the skills to do it, it's better to pay somebody to do it. Obviously, you've got to be able to afford it, but it's better to pay somebody who can do it for you properly, rather than just throwing money down the drain and hoping it might work. So, I think it's about building that into your business plan. But Stephen, Alexis, I don't know if you've got any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that massively. And I don't know if it's just me, because I'm so used to working on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. It just seems really simple to me, but it possibly isn't. But when I look at something like PPC, it's a massive science, and there's what Stephen just presented is like the tip of the iceberg. He made it sound really simple, but it's not at all, is it, Stephen?
No, I mean, I deliberately kept it at a very top level because I just wanted people to understand what it was all about. I kind of often liken it to kind of flying a jumbo jet, and you've got like the kind of the flight deck there with all the buttons and levers, and there's basically you can kind of just about get it up off the ground by knowing 5 to 10% of what the buttons do. But unless you kind of really know what they all do, I don't know them all, by the way. I have people who do it with me who kind of help me, but it's for sure. Look, I suppose agencies who you work with, good agencies, will kind of work with you a little bit to prove that what they can do is generate success initially, as a kind of lower risk entry point, and then kind of build up to things as well. So you don't necessarily have to sign up to someone for a year or 2 years and kind of wonder where it's going to go. Most agencies will kind of give you a bit of an entry path to kind of get you going.
I'd rather you didn't kind of take us on a jumbo jet right now, Stephen. Just we'll keep your safe hands on PPC rather than on the jumbo jet. I'm just aware, can we just go back to Jodie's question? I don't know if you've got anything else that you could say about Google Shopping, because I know we have got a few people on here who are kind of who sell products. Is there anything else, advice that you can give on Google Shopping ads?
I haven't got any specific advice to give, really. I'm more than happy to kind of talk offline about it to anyone. I mean, basically, the principle's the same. You still set up a Google Ads account as you do, conventionally. basically what happens with shopping ads is you upload your product feed and all your kind of product images and descriptions and prices and stuff. And then basically, as people probably have seen in the search results page, you know, I showed before that there's Google search, Google ads appear at the top of the page. But if you're doing a shopping search, you'll see the products appear as well. And then basically kind of being, you know, visible in that space as well. I don't know what more people want to know right now necessarily. I mean, it's definitely what I do know is that there's obviously a number of different things one can do in that space. And if you're selling on Amazon, there's a whole world now of kind of pay-per-click within Amazon, for example. And I know there's, you know, I think now recently, for example, Amazon became the default place. It's now more people start their product search on Amazon than they do on Google, I believe. That just kind of happened recently. So in the product world, obviously, if you're selling there, then you probably want to be on those platforms.
Thank you. I've also got from Alon, where you just said, Alon, I don't know if you want to explain a bit more. You said, can you also comment on Instagram, please? Maybe this is to Alexis about, I don't know what comment you want from them, Alon. Do you want to just go off mute?
Yeah, SEO, Google, Facebook ads, but my reach on Instagram is far greater, and interactivity with the right clients on Instagram is far greater. And I'm sure, you know, we all have our platforms. Rightfully, somebody says that wherever your clients hang out. So my clients hang out on Instagram. But the targeting you can do on Instagram well, I would go for the whole of the UK, but the interest you can name there is quite limited, actually, I find. So you can only name one or two interests. Also, as a B2B business, it's far more difficult to target the right people there. So I don't know if one of you can comment on that, please.
Yeah, so I personally don't actually use the Instagram app to advertise. So I use Facebook's business manager platforms or Facebook advertising, like the ads manager. So that's as you probably know, Facebook also own Instagram. So when you actually go onto Facebook Ads Manager and Business Manager platforms, you actually get an opportunity to select where you want your advertising to appear. Do you want it to appear on the Facebook news feeds? Do you want it to appear on Instagram news feeds or in Instagram stories? And Facebook have a huge network of ads as well. So you probably see, if you're like me, you play Words with Friends on your phone, in between goes, you'll see an ad that looks very similar to a Facebook ad, and it's because it is a Facebook ad, but it's called part of Facebook advertising network. So you can allow for your ads to appear wherever you want it to. You could let it say, okay, let it run wherever, or you can choose the individual platforms. But when you advertise on Facebook Ads Manager, when you use the actual platform, you can be really, really targeted. You can choose the postcode, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands of different interests that you can choose from. Lifestyle stages. The list is really, really endless. So I would recommend that you use Facebook Ads Manager. And what you can do as well is when you create the ads, you can just select the post that you want to boost, if that's what it is you want to do, or you can build a completely new ads from scratch.
Yes, I've used the Instagram Ads Manager inside the app, and it's very limited.
Yeah,
That's
I would
actually. Okay, yeah.
On a desktop computer or PC or laptop, search for Facebook Ads Manager, Facebook Business Manager, and go from there. That'd be a big recommendation.
Lovely. And one final question before we start the networking, just from Zach, saying, do agencies tend to charge a fixed amount or a percentage of the advertising spend? or does it
There's
depend?
different models, different agencies do different things. We've always worked on a fixed amount, but we only accept, work with clients with a certain kind of monetary value. Other agencies work on a fixed amount on a sliding scale. The danger with the sliding scale, of course, is then the agency is incentivized to make you spend more money, because the more money you spend on the advertising platform, the more money they earn. So I'm always a little bit distrustful of that potentially, but it depends.
Okay. Does that answer I hope that answers your question, Zach.
Can I just answer that other question about local service ads that I just saw
sure.
on there?
Thank you.
Yeah, so just Jackie asked about local service. Is it simple? It is pretty simple, but again, it's all relative. It depends how proficient you are managing these things. So some people will probably find it relatively straightforward. Others might need a bit of help, but we're here to help if anyone wants any help on that. But it's a relatively straightforward thing. And the other thing I just wanted to mention as well is if anyone's got any questions about SEO, which of course is kind of related to this digital marketing world, then Sonia Rosenblatt is in this chat today, and she's an expert in that field. So you might want to address things to her.
Thank you. That's brilliant. I'm going to stop recording now because we're going to go on to the network. But if everybody wants to either by reaction or just kind of unmute and give them a clap, I really, really appreciate, thank you so much for taking your time today, both Alexis and Stephen. Really, really interesting. Thanks so much for that. Let me stop